Kia ora tātou. Here is another quick video, this time on how to work with cases. Now, the likelihood is I will be using a case in that final exam. We're just finalizing that exam right now, but there will likely be a case in there. And a few people are like, how do you actually analyze a case when you're doing a test, or how do you prepare for it? So I'm going to go over the one that I use for Oxfam in the test. So this is what you would need to do if you were going to be looking at getting into that A+ sort of area. But it's also important to understand some of the foundations of this if you were going to be preparing for your exam. So let's get into it. So this is the case from Oxfam that I had presented, and I gave you this page. And I said, read this page, take a look at the page, and prepare for the test. I didn't tell you what the questions are. I'm never going to tell you what the questions are, but be prepared for it. Now, the first thing you should do if you're presented a case like this is to read the case. I mean, that's pretty much the basics, and most people understood that part. However, if you just read the case and you stop there, you're going to be in for a bit of trouble. I would then want you to start analyzing not just what is said, but the manner in which it is said. Take a look at the context within what is being said. So this is one that's focused on their commitment to Te Tiriti o Waitangi. You can see they say our commitment to Te Tiriti o Waitangi. Now straight away I would make a note there to say they're talking about Te Tiriti o Waitangi and not the Treaty of Waitangi. Now you know that there is a difference between the Treaty of Waitangi and the Te Tiriti o Waitangi because that was discussed in class. So why have they purposely used the Te Reo Māori version of this? Well, it's clearly showing maybe a level of authenticity that other people won't have done in the past, or an understanding. Start to look at key phrases where they talk about the things that stand out, the commitment, which side of Te Tiriti o Waitangi they stand, whether they're talking about stuff that seems very authentic, that they've had some education in this space, or whether it's pretty tokenistic, that sort of thing. So start to break down the case and start to analyze, make some notes, think about what you think in particular they are trying to say, why they're saying it, what they're communicating with this piece. So in the reflective diary, I have given you an opinion piece that was published in the New Zealand Herald. What does that tell you? What does that tell you about that piece of work and whether you think that's valid, or what validity that brings? Who is that? And what is the context in which that is written? If you stop there, that's not too bad. You're going to get into that sort of C, B range, and especially if you answer the question well. But if you really want to get into the A range, you now need to go beyond what has been presented. So a lot of people had no idea what Oxfam was. All right. Now, if I present you a case about a company, go and do some research on them. Find out who they are. Find out what they do. Literally, there's a section here called What We Do. Read up about all the different things they do. Find out who they engage with, how they engage. So some people came and said they have a commitment to Te Tiriti o Waitangi because they have a large number of clients who are Māori, and this is a way of connecting with Māori. Now that shows that they've gone beyond the case, they've researched this, they've provided some evidence to say 25% of their clientele are Māori, and so this is why a kaupapa Māori approach helps in that sort of situation. That's pretty cool. I would then start to analyze different parts of their website as well. I noticed when I was trying to read this that it came up with a bunch of donation things. They are very focused on making money. So how does that impact what they're saying here? The commitment to Te Tiriti o Waitangi, please give us money. You know, commitment to Te Tiriti o Waitangi, please give us more money, sort of thing. It's a weird sort of dichotomy, and that's where you can bring in some critical thinking and say, are they saying this potentially just to try and show that they're a trustworthy body, that they're maybe trying to get funding out of the government, whatever else it might be? Are they using this as a bit of virtue signaling to get money from you, whatever else it might be? But for some people, it might say all this commitment to the treaty doesn't help us, doesn't encourage us to donate, and so these things may not work. That's that critical lens that you want to bring in. So go beyond what is written, where it's written, the context in which, learn about the organization, learn about what they're trying to get out of this. So for example, the opinion piece that's published in the New Zealand Herald for the Reflective Journal, is that a valid source? Some people say yes, some people say no. Why? Provide evidence. Do some research on the person themselves. Are they just someone who has been able to get published? I have written opinion pieces, but I don't write opinion pieces on things I'm not an expert on. Is this person an expert? What credentials they have? Justify that. Maybe they wrote a book and that book became a bestseller, blah, 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 blah. That's how you start to analyze the validity of the case beyond what is written. Otherwise, we just take this at face value, and that's not great critical thinking. So again, some people came away from the test saying this was a really good thing, this is something that really shows that they understand and they care, blah, 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 blah. Other people came away and said this is all virtue signaling, they don't actually do anything that is resonant or behaves like they have a real commitment to Te o Waitangi. Both of those answers could have been right. It depends on how well they were justified, evidenced, presented in a logical case that makes sense. All right. So basics, start by reading the case. Secondary, start by analyzing what the case says. And after that, start looking at the context in which it's presented. After that, start looking at the organization themselves, doing some extra research, preparing yourself. You don't know what I'm going to ask about, but if you don't know about the organization, it's going to be very, very difficult for you to go into the exam knowing about the whole package of what I'm going to ask about. So I might ask about something that you've read about and you don't really remember. I might not ask about something you prepared about. That is part of the risk of learning and growing and getting prepared for an exam. But all of that stuff is going to be useful because that process is exactly what you need to be going through when you walk into a client meeting, when you walk into a boardroom. You need to know not just what they're going to ask you, but potentially other things they may ask you. Learn about the organization. I'm going to be at a meeting this afternoon with a client out there in the city talking about things that I can do for them, things that the university can help with. If I don't know about their organization, I'm going to look like a dumbass. So I've done a lot of research about what I can do, and this is what I know about, but also a lot of research about them so I can go in as a prepared person ready to hopefully wow them. If I don't, so be it. I'll prepare more next time. Hopefully this has been helpful. This is how I would encourage you to start reading, analyzing these case materials, getting prepared for the exam. All right, ka kite anō. Hope these videos are useful.